The Chinese bubble tea brand Chagee is about to enter Vietnam. However, just a few days after the announcement, the brand faced backlash from Vietnamese users. It seems that before Chagee could conquer the hearts of the Vietnamese, it hit a bump in the road. So what happened? On March 7th, Chagee's Vietnam Facebook page posted an invitation for users to download the Chagee app and participate in a game to get a free drink during the opening of its first store in Ho Chi Minh City. However, the map in the app reportedly displayed the 9-dash line, which caused a political controversy in Vietnam. According to reports by Vietnam's Laborer News, Vietnamese netizens began calling for a boycott of Chagee. Central News Agency reported that despite having only a few posts on its Vietnam Facebook page, each one attracted thousands, even tens of thousands of angry reactions. Many users demanded that Chagee remove the inappropriate map and leave comments in Vietnamese. As of March 20th, when this reporter checked the page, the most recent post was from March 14th, with over 55,000 angry reactions. Of the 10 or so posts, the one with the cover image alone had nearly 10,000 angry reactions, while the others all had reactions in the tens of thousands. After the backlash, Chagee's app was removed from Google and Apple's app stores in Vietnam. Neither Chagee nor the Vietnamese authorities have made a public statement about the incident yet. The controversy stems from China's 9-dash line, which Vietnam disputes in its territorial claims over the South China Sea. Vietnam has long prohibited the 9-dash line from appearing in any form within its territory. When organizations or groups hold events in Vietnam, all promotional materials and media are required to undergo review. If the materials include maps, Vietnam especially monitors whether the Paracel and Spratly Islands are marked as Vietnamese territory. If the materials don't meet Vietnam's regulations, the event could be impacted or even cancelled. Japanese media figure Akio Yaita posted on Facebook, criticizing the practice of scrutinizing foreign websites or apps for any signs of unpatriotism, and immediately aimed to bully the brand. He pointed out that this tactic, often used by Chinese nationalists, has now been adopted by the Vietnamese. He described it as a taste of their own medicine. Vietnam and China have long had disputes over territorial sovereignty in the South China Sea, and tensions have escalated in recent years. Not long ago, Chinese plush dolls with a 9-dash line drawn on their faces led to a nationwide crackdown in Vietnam. Foreign companies in Vietnam are now experiencing the same treatment that many foreign companies once faced in China. For example, a few years ago, Sony Japan faced a boycott and government fines in China over a camera launch on July 7th, which Chinese Little Pinks considered an allusion to the Marco Polo bridge incident. Yaita noted that this situation has raised concerns among foreign companies. Many Japanese companies have exited the Chinese market due to similar incidents. Ironically, Chagee didn't want to offend Vietnam, but was also afraid of angering China's Little Pinks. If they had removed the 9-dash line map from all their apps, they could have faced a boycott in China. Nationalism in China has been so heightened that many foreign companies can no longer do business with China based on normal commercial logic. It's a sad situation for Chinese businesses, who are increasingly stuck between a rock and a hard place. How could China's economy possibly improve under these circumstances? The Baby 3 doll incident, mentioned by Yaita, refers to a controversy in Vietnam, where some of these plush dolls were found to have graffiti resembling China's 9-dash line on their faces. This sparked a strong reaction from the Vietnamese authorities. On March 12th, Vietnam's Ministry of Industry and Trade's Domestic Market Development Bureau sent a letter to provincial management offices, urging them to intensify inspections of toys that contain content or images related to Vietnam's territorial sovereignty. The letter emphasized strict action against organizations or individuals violating Vietnam's territorial sovereignty. The official notice was accompanied by a photo of the Baby 3 doll, with a suspected 9-dash line drawn on its face marked with a large cross. Baby 3, a Chinese-made plush doll with big eyes and bunny ears, became a trend among Vietnamese children and Gen Z. It was released in Vietnam in May 2024 and sold in blind boxes, with different graffiti designs on its face. The toys gained popularity, particularly among local consumers. According to data analysis platform Unet, about 293,000 Baby 3 products were sold across 30 online platforms such as Shopee, TikTok, and Facebook in the second half of 2024. A report from e-commerce data platform Metric showed that Baby 3 earned 40.6 billion Vietnamese dong and $1.6 million in revenue last year. The toy's popularity skyrocketed until one of its dolls was found to have a design on its cheek that resembled China's 9-dash line. This sparked a backlash online in Vietnam. A public relations worker shared that they had once drawn a map of Vietnam to introduce the country's cultural and tourist attractions. However, since the map did not include the Paracel and Spratly Islands, their promotional materials were rejected, and they were fined 10 million Vietnamese dong. Vietnam is extremely cautious when reviewing promotional materials, even closely inspecting digital files. The Chagee incident didn't just spark dissatisfaction in Vietnam, it also spread to Malaysia. The South China Morning Post reported that the Chagee app displayed a map supporting China's 9-line claim. Malaysia is also a claimant in the South China Sea territorial dispute and opposes China's 9-line. In Malaysia, calls for a boycott quickly spread online. One of the Facebook groups leading the movement, called Malaysian-Sold Chinese, posted criticism of Chagee for insulting our country's maritime sovereignty. The post called on Malaysians, saying, "As Malaysians, we must unite. I urge our patriotic brothers and sisters to boycott this brand and defend our country's sovereignty and dignity." So, what exactly is the 9-line, and why did it trigger these boycotts in Vietnam and Malaysia? The 9-line, claimed by the Chinese Communist Party, refers to the boundary line that defines the territorial scope of China's claims in the South China Sea. This line covers around 2 million square kilometers of ocean within China's claimed maritime territory, while the area outside the 9-line belongs to other nations, covering about 1.5 million square kilometers. The total area of the South China Sea is a combination of both regions. Beijing uses the 9-line to assert sovereignty over nearly the entire South China Sea, but some of these areas overlap with the exclusive economic zones of the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia, leading to disputes. During the period of the Republic of China, a boundary line called the 11-line was marked on Chinese maps of the South China Sea. After the establishment of the CCP, 2 segments were removed from the 11-line, leaving the 9-line, which also shifted the area near the Gulf of Tonkin to Vietnam. Since the 1970s, countries like Vietnam have occupied some of the islands within the 9-line. Currently, of the 45 islands and reefs within the 9-line, Vietnam occupies nearly 30, the Philippines controls 11, Malaysia has 6, and Brunei occupies 1. In 1982, the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea introduced the concept of an exclusive economic zone, which is a maritime area extending up to 200 nautical miles from the coast. Beyond the Territorial Sea, Indonesia's Natuna Islands' exclusive economic zone partially overlaps with the 9-line, leading to a territorial dispute with China. China's upgraded national map marked a 10-line in the South China Sea, extending beyond the 9-line, adding a segment that includes Taiwan's eastern side. When China released this new map, countries involved in territorial and maritime disputes with China quickly voiced opposition, condemnation, and protests. The Philippines was the first to speak out, rejecting China's actions as lacking international legal basis. On July 12, 2016, the Hague International Court ruled that China's 9-line claims in the South China Sea had no legal foundation. However, China rejected the ruling and intensified its deployments of maritime law enforcement vessels and militia fishermen in the region. In 2023, China released an updated map extending the 9-line to a 10-line, further asserting sovereignty over 90% of the South China Sea, including the Dongsha, Xisha, Zhongsha, and Nansha Islands. On August 29, 2023, India's Ministry of External Affairs officially lodged a strong protest with China. Indian Foreign Minister Subramanyam Jaishankar stated in an interview that incorporating another country's territory into one's own map was a long-standing practice by China, and such actions would not change the reality. The ongoing conflicts between the Philippines and China over the South China Sea have gained increasing attention. On January 24 this year, the Philippines released a comic book exposing China's aggressive actions in the South China Sea and countering China's distorted narratives about its maritime rights in the region. The comic book, titled Stories of Teacher June, has 40 pages and is designed to help students understand the South China's maritime zone, international law, and the importance of protecting the Philippines' marine resources. Philippine National Security Advisor Eduardo Año stated that the comic book aims to counter the CCP's misinformation and better educate Filipinos about their sovereign rights. It is part of the Philippine government's efforts to expose China's aggressive actions in the South China Sea. The book serves as a tool for Filipinos to understand the complex maritime issues and their sovereign rights under international law. Anyo said, Chinese officials, along with state-sponsored media and individuals, continue to spread distorted and twisted narratives to malign our efforts and justify their unilateral claims. Philippine Coast Guard Chief Ronnie Gavin expressed hopes that the book would inspire the younger generation of Filipinos to protect their rights. China's embassy in Manila criticized the initiative, calling it political manipulation. In response to China's increasing pressure, the Philippines has also strengthened its military posture. The Philippines recently signed a new defense agreement with the United States, allowing U.S. forces to further use Philippine military bases. The country is also enhancing security with Japan and Australia and plans to procure advanced air defense and anti-ship weapons to improve its defense capabilities. In February this year, a confrontation occurred between Chinese and Philippine military aircraft in the South China Sea. A Chinese naval helicopter came within 3 meters of a Philippine patrol plane.
Chinese military helicopter, you are flying too close.
Near Scarborough Shoal and warned the Philippines, you are invading China's airspace. The Philippine pilot responded, saying the Chinese aircraft was too close and extremely dangerous. The standoff lasted for about 30 minutes before the Chinese helicopter withdrew. It wasn't just the Philippines protesting China's actions. Australia also lodged a complaint, accusing China's J-16 fighters of firing flares near an Australian P-8 Poseidon patrol plane, just 30 meters away, severely threatening flight safety. The U.S. military has also repeatedly stated that U.S. warships and aircraft conducting freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea have encountered dangerous intercepts from Chinese military planes. In light of China's military expansion in the South China Sea, cooperation among the Philippines, the U.S., Japan, and Australia is deepening and could potentially form a broader anti-China alliance. Philippine Defense Secretary emphasized that China's provocative actions in the South China Sea were the main reason regional countries were uniting against China. He warns that if China continues using force to change the status quo, it will destabilize the global strategic balance and lead to more countries joining the resistance. Earlier, we discussed protests from Southeast Asia, East Asia, South Asia, and even oceanic countries against China's military expansion in the South China Sea. Interestingly, Vietnam, a key player in this dispute, is also resisting China in other ways. According to a new report from the Washington-based Center for Strategic and International Studies, Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative, since November 2023, Vietnam has accelerated its land reclamation activities in the South China Sea. Vietnam has created 692 acres of new land at 10 sites, nearly doubling the amount of land reclaimed over the previous 2 years. In the first 11 months of 2023 alone, Vietnam created 404 acres, compared to 347 acres in 2022. Voice of America reported that the Canada Reef remains Vietnam's largest outpost, with the reclaimed area nearly doubling from 238 acres to 412 acres. According to reports, ongoing construction can be seen on several islands and reefs, including typical Vietnamese trenches and coastal defense structures. Many of the expanding islands also feature temporary helicopter pads. Analysts suggest that Vietnam's actions seem to be a response to China's aggressive behavior in the disputed South China Sea region. Since 2013, China has been building islands in the South China Sea, claiming sovereignty over vast areas, including those where Vietnam has also been constructing islands. On the commercial front, Vietnam has also taken measures to resist the CCP. On December 5th last year, China's 2 major online retailers, Temu and Shein, announced that they had suspended operations in Vietnam. The Vietnamese government and its domestic businesses have expressed concerns about China's online platforms' low-price sales strategies. The Ministry of Trade has also raised worries about these platforms potentially selling counterfeit goods. Vietnam has demanded that Temu and Shein complete their registration with the government by November 2024, or face domain name blocking and the suspension of their apps. Temu, owned by Chinese e-commerce giant Pinduoduo, launched in Vietnam in October 2024, while fast fashion retailer Shein has been selling products in Vietnam for over 2 years. The Ministry of Industry and Trade has ordered Temu to halt operations in the country until it completes the required registration process. The ministry did not specify how long the suspension would last or what steps Temu must take to lift the suspension. Meanwhile, Vietnam continues to strengthen its relationship with the United States. On March 1st, Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh announced that the Vietnamese government aims to grant a license to Elon Musk's Starlink to provide satellite internet services in Vietnam through a trial program. This marks a sudden shift in Vietnam's stance on foreign control over satellite network providers. The communist-controlled country has historically maintained strict restrictions on foreign control over sensitive economic sectors. Previously, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh mentioned during talks with nearly 40 U.S. companies in Hanoi that Vietnam is taking steps to rebalance its trade surplus with the U.S. He mentioned potential imports, including aircraft, military equipment, liquefied natural gas, agricultural products, and pharmaceuticals. Overall, China's ambitious Chagee tea brand had hoped to conquer the Vietnamese market, but was quickly rejected by Vietnamese netizens, with Malaysia joining in the boycott. This reflects the growing resistance from Southeast Asian countries against the CCP. At the same time, the Philippines, Japan, Australia, and the US are strengthening their defense capabilities to prepare for China's increasing pressure.